Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Phil.
So you and I have discussed how we both really enjoyed the Evolving Leader episode with guest Ollie Henderson, the Work-Life Flywheel, which is Series 5, Episode 24, back in May of 2023.
You know, Phil, it's so interesting, and the conversation centers around research that Ollie undertook for his book during the height of the pandemic. So it was obviously a time when there was a lot going on, and in many ways, the pandemic was this catalyst that provoked so many of us into thinking about work in many different ways. And for so long and for so many, the reality was this feeling that pressure from work meant that personal life and family life just really suffered. And on the flip side, pressures from family life meant that work and your career path was hampered. It's all very confusing. But we were chasing the ideal of work-life balance. But honestly, as Ollie mentions in the podcast, we were never really quite achieving it.
Ah, yes, the elusive work-life balance where career and personal life are really experienced as opposing forces. During the conversation with John and Scott, Ollie describes how during his research he found that 75% of people were wanting to make big changes to their work lives, but were afraid to do so because their identity was wrapped up in their current work situation.
I find that so fascinating, so interesting. And also, during that same conversation, Ollie had shared a number of potential routes that we can all take to improve this situation for ourselves, because I think we all at some point in our lives feel this. And I think for me, the biggest takeaway, the biggest action that Ollie suggested was his version of journaling. So Ollie talks about journaling in the morning and evening, but I think what really stood out for me was specifically his evening practice. So he suggested that at the end of your day, you sit down and you write down 3 awesome things that happened at work, and then 1 awesome thing that happened outside of work. And then this practice highlights that what you love doing in your day, what elements of your life that you should be making more time for, these elements keep coming up every single day or as a trend within your journaling. And this can also bring you closer to understanding your purpose and understanding your passions as you start to see these trends. It's kind of like running an experiment on yourself. When you see things that you like doing, you can do more of them. And I mean, at the end of the day, journaling can help with stress reduction. It can show progress on the projects and the passions that matter to you. And interestingly enough, it significantly improves memory. I also love how Ollie mentions that writing it down through pen and paper instead of typing it, that actually logs it in the brain.
That is so powerful.
So if you think back to the episode with Ollie, what was the standout for you, Phil?
Well, for me, this definitely got quite personal because, like so many of us, I've had times in my life when I've struggled to find a balance between work and life. And I'll also throw study into that, because for me, the period when I struggled the most was during the mid-2000s, when I had a young family at home, I was running a business, and had gone back to university as a postgrad. It was a crazy time. During the episode, Ollie shares a statistic that 9 out of 10 people believe that they're not fulfilling their potential. Putting it simply, he's meaning people are not getting the best out of themselves in the situation that they're in. And when I look back to that period in the mid-2000s, that really rings true. So what should we be doing to fulfill our potential as individuals? The way that Ollie describes this makes it feel so obvious and simple. And I have to say, that's how I felt about so much of what he says during the episode. He is a great communicator.
That is so powerful, Phil. And we don't want to give too much of this episode away. We'll leave the discussion here. And I would love to encourage everyone to head over to Season 5, Episode 24 of the Evolving Leader podcast. You can catch the whole conversation with Ollie there. And there's a link to that in the notes.